The Atlantis heritage. This time of transition on Earth brings many old things to the surface. Old energies emerge from times long gone by, times in which you were incarnate and had lives in which you experienced much. All these old layers now resurface. I would like to speak of these old times today, to bring you to a deeper understanding of yourselves, of who you are here and now. You are old, ancient beings, who carry within a great deal of experience. Long journeys through time and space you have made, and not just on planet Earth. Please let me take you back to the beginning. There was never a beginning, but for the sake of the story, I speak of a beginning in time, because there was a starting point to the large cycle of lifetimes in which you are now caught up. I am taking you to the time of your birth as an individual soul, as a separate I. The I-ness that is so familiar to you now, was an altogether new phenomenon in the universe. Being separate and individual, enables you to gather a multitude of experiences, and yes, illusions as well. But that does not make it less valuable. It is precisely in being an I, in being separate from the whole, and experiencing the illusions that go with it, that you can discover what is not. You can discover an illusion and experience it from the inside out. At first, this was not possible. At first, there was the one, filled with love, and overflowed with joy and creativity. There was an incredible desire in you to experience, to know, to feel and to create. Please go within for a moment, and see whether you can sense the truth of it, that you are an angel in the deepest part of you. I now take a big leap in time, as I can only give a broad outline of this extensive history. I take you to the beginning of planet Earth. You were present there. You are older than the existence of Earth as a physical planet. Your birth as a pristine I consciousness lies much further back than the origin of Earth. Now imagine that you were contributing to the development of life on Earth. Slowly, life evolved on Earth, through the presence of material elements which offered a broad range of possibilities for consciousnesses to incarnate in material forms or bodies, minerals, plants, and later on, animals. And you were deeply involved in this process of creation. How? You were the angels and devas who supported and nurtured the vegetable kingdom, who knew the web of life on Earth intimately and cared for it deeply. You have also provided animal life forms with love, care and etheric nourishment. Memories you carry of paradise or the Garden of Eden, of a perfectly balanced nature in which you participated as caregiver and keeper of life, stem from this ancient age. You were not incarnate yet then, but hovering between the ethereal and physical realms. You were an angel on the verge of being born into matter. Remember the innocence of that age, remember what it was like to be this angel deva consciousness and how dearly you loved the earth and all manifestations of life on it. Feel the childlike aspect of your consciousness back then. You were like children playing in paradise, always in the mood for adventures, kidding around, laughing, experiencing the joy of freely expressing yourself in a safe environment. Despite your playfulness, you were in great awe of the guiding laws of life, and you would not think of treating life forms with anything less than deep fondness and respect. So, you have been in some sense the parents of life on Earth. This explains why you can be thoroughly shocked by the disturbances of nature by modern technologies, and the general abuse of the forces of nature. Why does it affect you so? It is because you have cherished and nurtured these very energies from the beginning. From your essence you are connected to it, to Earth and its many life forms, as a parent is to her child, and a creator to his creation. And back then, when you were angels nurturing Earth life, you knew not why you were doing it. You acted as children who felt drawn by the calling of yet another adventure, the thrill of the new, and you let yourself be guided simply by what felt joyful and exciting to you. You planted your energy wherever it felt welcome. Thus, you helped create paradise on Earth, the splendor of life, the abundance of the plant and animal kingdoms, the diversity of life forms and the unconstrained development of it all. Please hold on to this image for a moment. Remember who you are. Even if it seems too grandiose, when I tell you this, just allow yourself to fantasize that you are part of this, that you are present as an angel in that garden of life, playful, innocent, nurturing and cherishing life. Out of paradise, the first fall into experience. Many developments occurred on Earth over millions of years, which are hard to describe in a nutshell. But, at a certain point in time, your blissful adventure in the Garden of Eden was disturbed by an outside influence, which might be termed bad or dark. From other dimensions in the universe, beings started to meddle with Earth. Their purpose was to exert power and influence over life on Earth. This happening, the interference of powerful dark energies which emerged out of nothing from your point of view, deeply shocked your angel selves. You were not prepared. This was your first encounter with evil, and it shook your world to its foundations. For the first time, you experienced what it was like to not feel safe anymore. You got to know human emotions: fear, shock, anger, disappointment, grief, outrage. What is this? What is happening here? Sense how the shadows fell upon you in that encounter with darkness, the dark side of duality. Slowly, the craving for power, which had shocked and horrified you, started to take possession of you yourself. This was because you felt indignation and outrage towards the attackers, and you wanted to defend and protect the Earth against this strange invasion. I speak of an extraterrestrial influence, a certain race so to speak, the origin of which does not matter much for our tale. What matters is that you partly absorbed the energy of these beings, and thus made a fall. I do not speak of a biblical fall, as this phrase is associated with sin and guilt, but a fall into experience, into darkness, which was in a sense predestined because you were part of the world of duality. By being an I, by experiencing separateness from the whole, the seeds for duality were born inside of you. It is part of the logic of creation that you will explore all extremes of duality once you are in it. You gradually became warriors yourselves, as you desired the power to protect your territory. A new stage ensued in your history, in which you got caught up in various galactic wars and struggles. Please take a moment to feel this happening, the fall from the playful energy of the angel child to the harsh and angry energy of the galactic warrior. We are speaking of long periods of time. It may seem grand and unfathomable that you have gone through all this, yet I ask you to allow your imagination to travel with me for a while. You got caught up in a fierce and grand battle. Part of the science fiction literature familiar to you describes all this and is actually inspired by real events in the distant past. It is not mere fiction. Much has actually happened and you were deeply involved in it. You lost yourselves in the struggle for power, and during this stage of your history you thoroughly experienced the energy of the ego. I have talked of this before in the Lightworker series, and I now want to take another huge leap and tell you what the next important stage was. After a long time, you got tired of fighting. You had had enough. You were getting sad and battle-weary, and a kind of homesickness crept into your hearts. You had long been obsessed with the wars and conflicts you were involved in. The illusion of power can exert an hypnotic influence over an untested, naive mind. You were naive and untested when you experienced your first fall into darkness. But then, at a certain point, an awakening occurred within you. A vague memory of the old days in paradise stirred in your minds and hearts, reminding you of the joy and innocence you once knew. You wished you could go back there and did not desire to fight anymore. One might say that the energies of the ego had been exhausted in you, by the full experience of it. You had known all sides of the battle, the whole range of emotions having to do with winning and losing, controlling and surrendering, being slayer and slain. You had become disillusioned with power and had discovered that power does not give you what it promises to: love, happiness, fulfillment. You awoke from your hypnotic slumber and yearned for something new. When you reached out to rise above the energy of struggle, and connect to the energy of the heart, you were again naive and untested. You were like children who popped your head over the wall of an altogether new country, in which not struggle or power were the leading forces but love and connection. You followed the calling of your soul, and climbed over the wall. And you started to meet each other again and to recognize each other as soulmates, members of the same family. Once you had played together as angels in the Garden of Eden. The members of the Lightworker family, who are part of the same birth wave of souls, looked up on each other again and felt drawn by common calling, a shared mission. You knew you had to do something to make the major step towards heart consciousness, the return to paradise. actually happened for you. You felt you had dealings with Earth once again, but this time as a human being, incarnated in a human body, to experience from within what had happened on Earth due to the galactic wars and your abuse of power. In your struggle for power, the Earth had always been the focal point of attention. Many galactic parties battled for dominion on Earth, and this negatively affected the Earth, all life upon her and the collective soul of evolving humanity. The reason why Earth was such an important target for all these warring parties is not so easily explained. Briefly put, Earth is the starting point of something new. It is a place that brings many different dimensions and realities together and therefore constitutes a crossroads toward the future. Many energies meet and mix together on Earth, within the plant, animal, and especially the human kingdom. This is very special. When these energies can peacefully coexist together, it will bring about a huge explosion of light throughout the cosmos. That is why Earth is playing a key role and why she had been in the center of a great battle. You were once part of this battle, as offenders, trying to manipulate life and consciousness on Earth in quite an aggressive manner. This caused harm to the developing human being. Humanity was then in its infant stage, the stage of innocence. Humanity was inhabited by souls who were from a different birth wave than you. We have called them Earth Souls in the Lightworker series. It was a group of souls younger than you were, who had manifested on Earth from early on and had to deal with outside, extraterrestrial manipulations which narrowed down the capabilities of the human being. The extraterrestrial forces projected energies of fear and inferiority into the open and young consciousness of man. This enabled them to gain control over them. I return now to your decision to incarnate on Earth as a human being. You had two motives. First, you sensed you were ready for an inner change and transformation. You wanted to let go of the ego's battling attitude and grow towards another way of being. You did not know what exactly this meant. You could not grasp it fully yet, but you sensed that incarnating on Earth would offer you precisely the challenges and possibilities you needed. Secondly, you knew you had to make up for things that happened on Earth, partly because of your doing. You somehow sensed that, originally, you had a deep bond with Earth based on love and mutual respect, and it had gotten corrupted when you let yourself be enmeshed in war and battle for this very Earth. The two extremes of you, of angel child and hardened warrior, needed to be brought together and transformed, and what place could be more suitable for this than Earth? You felt deeply connected to this planet and you also sensed a karmic obligation to improve conditions on Earth. You wished to change and lift the state of consciousness on Earth. So you became light workers. You incarnated on Earth at the time of Atlantis. Atlantis, the second fall into experience. Atlantis was a civilization that lies much further back in time than the familiar historical eras. Atlantis gradually came into being about 100,000 years ago, and it ended about 10,000 years ago. The first beginnings even predate 100,000 years. Atlantis gradually evolved when extraterrestrial races started to invade Earth by actually incarnating in human bodies. These souls in general had a high level of mental development. At that time, societies and communities on Earth were largely made up of Earth souls, and they were primitive societies as you call them. There were, even before Atlantis, many extraterrestrial influences on Earth, from galactic realms that sent thought forms to Earth in different ways. Thought forms are energies that connect themselves to humans at the ethereal or auric level, and thus influence the thoughts and emotions of people. This happens continuously as you absorb ideas and beliefs from your upbringing and society. These surround you as an infectious web. But it can also happen from the astral levels surrounding you. The thought forms projected onto you by the galactic warriors were in general controlling and manipulative, but there have always been influences of light and gentleness as well. It is the human himself who decides what he allows in and what not. At a certain moment, the galactic parties wished to have a more profound influence on Earth, and there was an opportunity for them to actually inhabit human bodies, in short to incarnate on Earth. Spirit or life opened up this possibility for them because it fit into their inner path of development. You were one of these parties. In your spiritual literature, folks that stem from these galactic realms are often referred to as star people or starseeds. Atlantis was the result of a coming together, a mixture of the native Earth societies and the influx of souls that came from the outside. You, the wave of the Lightworker souls, incarnated on Earth because you wished to bring about change and progress, and because you wanted to grow yourselves from an ego-based consciousness to a heart-based consciousness. When you arrived, it felt very awkward and uncomfortable at first, to be inside of physical human bodies. Living in such dense physical matter gave you a sense of oppression and imprisonment, as you were used to much more fluid and volatile bodies, that possessed more psychic power. In higher, less material or dense, frequencies or dimensions, your psyche has a much greater direct influence on the material environment. By simply thinking of, or wanting something, you can create or attract it immediately to you on these planes. Your mind was used to creating much faster than was possible on Earth. You might say that the reaction time on Earth is much slower. So when you are here for the first time, you have the sensation that you are somehow locked into a solid and unyielding body, and you get insecure, since what you desire and aspire does not materialize so easily anymore, and your hold over your life and circumstances seems to be quite limited. So you were confused when you got here. At the same time, you had highly trained mental abilities that were developed during your previous galactic lifetimes. To send out thought forms and project them onto other living beings, requires that you own quite some psychic power. Your mind was like a set of sharp knives, which had to prove their value in an altogether different environment. Your trained mental capacities were an old attainment, and because of the sense of alienation and oppression you experienced on Earth, you instinctively tried to find your way here by using this old attainment. You thus started to exert your mental powers on Earth. Originally, your intention had been to connect with Earth reality from the heart. Before you incarnated, you knew that, despite your formidable analytical and psychic powers, the grounds of your heart lay fallow and were in need of seed, little seedlings of light. This, however, you forgot when you plunged into Earth reality and your consciousness got veiled. On Earth, you had to deal with the Earth souls, who lived there as human beings, and you did not understand them well. You thought they were instinctive and barbaric beings. You did not understand their direct, spontaneous way of expressing emotions. They were primitive in your eyes. They were attuned to their emotions and instincts more than to their minds. You had abilities and gifts that were different from the natural dispositions of the people on Earth. Even though you were frequently born and raised as their children, when you were born to Earth soul parents, there gradually developed a social divide between you and them. Because of your superior mental skills, you developed technologies that were formerly unknown. This all happened slowly and naturally. We speak of thousands, even 10,000 years of time. Without going into the details of this process, I want to ask you to feel the essence of what was happening there. Can you imagine you were part of that? Can you imagine what it must have felt like to end up somewhere you do not truly feel at home and to know, there's something I planned to do here, but what was it? Let me see, I have certain abilities and powers at my command, this distinguishes me from many others in my environment. I will make use of these talents to assert myself. Do you recognize this kind of pride and ambition within you? Can you remember it was yours? This is a typical Atlantean energy. Gradually, a new culture came into being on Earth, a civilization that brought forth an unprecedented technological development which affected all parts of society. I would like to say a little more about the kind of technology that evolved in Atlantis. What you as star people still remember brightly, despite the veil of forgetfulness, was that you can influence material reality by using the power of your mind, specifically the third eye. The third eye is the energy center, chakra, of intuition and psychic awareness, and it is located behind your two physical eyes. The power of the third eye was still very familiar to you in those first incarnations, like a second nature to your soul. You knew how it worked. You knew that matter, physical reality, has a form of consciousness, is consciousness in a certain state of being. Through this essential insight into the oneness of consciousness and matter, you could affect and form matter, by making inner contact with the consciousness in the piece of matter. In this way, you could literally move matter, manipulate it from the mind. You knew a secret that was forgotten in more recent times. Presently, you see matter, physical reality, as separated from consciousness, the mind. Influenced by modern science, you have forgotten that all beings are ensouled. All that is has some form of consciousness that you can connect with and cooperate with in a creative way. This knowledge was self-evident to you in those ancient times. But during Atlantis, when your heart centers had not been awakened fully, your third eye was predominantly controlled by the center of the will or ego, the solar plexus or third eye chakra. You stood on the doorway of a new inner reality, the reality of heart-based consciousness, but due to the shock of being submerged in the dense reality of Earth, your tender and fresh inspirations got lost temporarily. You allowed yourselves to be led astray by the excessive use of the will, mixed with the power of the third eye. You did aspire to make things better on a larger scale, light work, but you did it in a self-centered way, with an authoritarian attitude toward the Earth souls and nature. In the heyday of Atlantis, there were many possibilities, and the technology was highly advanced, in some areas even more than your present technology, because the power of telepathy and psychic manipulation was much better used and understood. Instantaneous telepathic communication could take place between different persons at great distance from each other. It was possible to leave your body consciously and travel around. Communication with extraterrestrial civilizations was pursued and effected. Much became possible during Atlantis, but much went wrong as well. There generally was a divide between the political spiritual elite and the common people, which were made up of Earth souls predominantly. They were looked upon as inferior beings, means to an end, and they were actually used for genetic experiments that were part of the Atlantean ambition to manipulate life on the biological level, so that more superior life forms could be created. A positive aspect of the Atlantean society, by the way, was the equality of men and women during that age. The power struggle of man and woman, in which women were horribly oppressed during the last stage, was not a part of Atlantis. The feminine energy was fully respected, especially because it is directly related to the power of the third eye, intuition, clairvoyance, spiritual power. I wish to take you to the downfall of Atlantis. Energies were at work there that you are still trying to come to terms with. You were deeply involved in what went wrong at that stage. In Atlantis, you lived from the centers of the will and the third eye. Your heart energy did not open up significantly. At a certain point, you fell in love with the possibilities of your own technology and the ambition of creating more superior life forms. You applied genetic engineering and experimented on several life forms, and you were unable to understand, to feel, that you were disrespectful to life in this. The ones you experimented upon could not count on your empathy and compassion. The energy present at this stage of perversion in the Atlantean civilization specifically returned in the 20th century as the Nazi regime in Germany. Cruel experimenting and a general attitude of clinical coldness towards inferior life forms was a substantial part of that regime. The lack of compassion and empathy displayed towards the perpetrated, the lack of emotion and the mechanical way of dealing with the victims, was similar to the Atlantean attitude. This now fills you with a deep sense of horror. You have seen and felt the other side of it, the victim side, in lifetimes that came after Atlantis. But during Atlantis, you were the offender. That's where a particular karma ensued. Atlantis is the key to your offender lifetimes, your dark side. I'm telling you this, not to make you feel ashamed or guilty, not at all. We are all part of this history, taking on various roles and disguises, and this is what it is like to be in duality. It is to experience and play all thinkable roles, from very light to very dark. If you allow yourself to know your dark side, if you can accept that you played the role of perpetrator as well, you will be more balanced, free, and joyful. That is why I tell you this. At one point, the technological developments that you and other soul groups pursued had such a great impact upon nature that the ecological systems on Earth got disrupted. The downfall of Atlantis did not take place all at once. There were many warning signs, nature's beckoning, but when they were not heeded, enormous natural disasters occurred through which the Atlantean civilization got flooded and destroyed. How did it affect you on the inner level? It was a shocking experience, a traumatic experience. It was another fall, a second fall of experience into the deep. During your incarnations on Earth, you had eventually lost the connection to the heart energy that you had reached out to. Stronger than ever, you realized after the downfall of Atlantis that truth was not to be found in the controlling of life, even if the purpose seemed noble. You then really began to open up to the still voice of the heart, which tells you that there is a wisdom working through life itself, that needs no managing or controlling. In the flow of life itself, in the flow of the heart and the feelings, there is a wisdom that you can attune to, or align with, by listening and surrendering. It is not a wisdom created from the head or by the will, it is a wisdom that comes from allowing in a higher perspective, the voice of love. This mystical knowing, which is accompanied by a sense of humbleness and surrender, you slowly started to feel from within. But even then, the time was not yet ripe for a joyful awakening of the heart energies. A shadow had fallen upon you during Atlantis, the shadow of having affected other beings negatively. The effects of this would have to be deeply felt and experienced by you before the awakening could take place. Again, I take another huge step in this old history, and I take you to the moment you returned to Earth, after Atlantis had vanished, washed away by ocean waves. Once again you incarnated in human bodies, the memory of Atlantis buried deep within your soul memory, tied with a sense of shame and self-doubt. The downfall of Atlantis had stunned and perplexed you, but it had also opened up your hearts a little wider. What immense developments taking place on such a grand scale of time. Rejection as a light worker, the third fall in experience. The next important cycle started with the coming of the Christ energy on Earth, most visibly represented by me. Many of you were present then or around that time. A few centuries before my birth, you started to incarnate again in great numbers. A voice from your heart enticed you, summoned you. You sensed that you had to be there, that it was time for you to take another step on your spiritual journey, which got so intertwined with Earth. The coming of the Christ energy, my coming to Earth, was partly prepared by you. I could not have come without a layer of energy present on Earth that would receive me, catch me so to speak. The energy provided the channel through which I could anchor the Christ energy on Earth. It was a joint effort, truly. Your hearts had opened up to me, to what I represented. At that time, you were the part of humanity most open to receive the love and wisdom from the heart. A certain humbleness had arisen within you, in the best sense of the word, a surrender to not knowing, not wanting to control or manage things, and a genuine openness to something new, something that stands apart from power and control, something different. And because of this trust and openness in your hearts, you could receive me. I was like a light beam falling on Earth, reminding the ones who were ready of their angelic nature, their divine core. You were moved by me, by what I expressed and radiated to you from my inner core, and the Christ energy has thenceforth affected you deeply, in that lifetime around Christ and in the lifetimes after it, up to now. In all of those lives, you have tried to bring the Christ energy down to Earth, spread it through teaching and healing in different forms. You were inspired and passionate light workers, working hard to bring more justice, fairness and love to this planet. In that era, the era of the awakening Christ energy, you were the ones who were opposed to religions that were too tightly organized, to authoritarian ways of subduing people. You fought for freedom, emancipation of the female energy, heart-based values in an age that was still barely aware of it. In the past 2,000 years, you were freedom fighters and you were rejected and persecuted for it. You were punished and tortured for who you were, and frequently ended up on the stake of the scaffold. You carry a lot of emotional trauma from this episode of history. In the struggles and the resistance you met, the Atlantean and galactic karma was working. The roles were now reversed. You became victims and went through the depths of loneliness, fear and despair. You got intimately acquainted with the deep emotional pain of rejection. This was your third fall, a third fall into experience, and the one that brought you to the heart of your mission, understanding the oneness underlying both light and dark, learning what love truly means. This third fall has led you to the present, to who you are now. Today, at the edge of a new cycle, in these transformative times, you are truly open to the meaning of the Christ energy. In your heart, a wisdom is sprouting that embraces and transcends opposites and recognizes the one divine flow in all different manifestations. Your love is not a mere abstract knowing, but a real, pure and sincere flow from the heart, that reaches out to others, and to earth. You now recognize yourself in the countenance of the other, whether they are light or dark, rich or poor, light worker or each soul, man, animal or plant. The love embedded in the Christ consciousness bridges the gap between opposites and gives you a palpable sense of the interconnectedness of all that is. As an angel, you once guarded paradise on earth. You cut yourself off from the state of innocence, when you engaged in the dance of power with energies that wanted to steal paradise from you. Through this, you abandoned the spiritual realm and incarnated deeper into the material reality of form and illusion. From angel, you became warrior. When you incarnated on earth and went to experience what it was like to be human, you were again tempted by the desire to control things, and this led to the downfall of Atlantis, and of you as a warrior. You came back to earth to experience the downside of the power play, to feel what it is like to fall prey to aggression and violence. The aftermath of this latter part of the cycle is still clearly present in your way of experiencing things, and you are all working hard to overcome the trauma of rejection inside of you. With that, you are coming full circle, to the point where it began. You come back to your true nature as an angel, but now a fully incarnate angel, with a real and alive knowledge of the extremes of light and dark, love and fear. You are a wise and compassionate angel, a human angel. I have great respect for you, for the incredible journey you have made. I stand before you now as your equal. I am here as a teacher and guide, but also as a brother and a friend. I would like to offer you my love and friendship, not in an abstract manner, but as a tangible energy of companionship and understanding. I know who you are. Now recognize yourself in my countenance. You are at the end of great cycles of time, in which you have gone through many experiences. Today I wanted to speak of Atlantis, as the recognition of the energies that you embodied there, which can help you get into a state of peace and wholeness with yourself. The Atlantean energy is the energy of great mental power, combined with a distinctive pride and arrogance. Dare to recognize this dark energy within, dare to accept that you have experienced and lived it once. Feel that you have been offender and perpetrator as well as victim. Allowing this fact into your consciousness opens the gateway to the greatest wisdom you can embrace in your life, the wisdom of non-judgmentalists. By being aware of your dark side, you will let go of judging others, for being right or wrong, or even yourself. All grounds for judgment will fall away. Judgment makes way for understanding and compassion. Then you really start to understand what love is, what light work means. The word light work in fact suggests falsely that there is some kind of struggle going on between the light and the dark, and that the light worker is the one beating the dark. But true light work is none of that. Real light work entails that you are able to recognize the light of love and consciousness in all that is, even if it is hiding behind masks of hatred and aggression. You are still often tempted to pass judgments on the reality of Earth, for instance on the way politics work, or the way people are treating the environment. It is easy to say that it's all wrong and to feel yourself a stranger on this planet Earth, alienated and homeless. Try to make contact with the offender energy within you in such moments. Allow yourself to access the Atlantean energy, which is still there in your soul memory, and feel that you have been that too, and even that it was okay. All of your falls into experience eventually bring you full circle and open up your heart to the essence of God's creation, love, creativity, innocence. You, who have experienced the extremes of darkness and light, have all along your journey been none other than an innocent child from paradise, setting out with a spirit of frankness, bold curiosity and zest for life. On this journey, you could only learn from experience. The falls into experience could not have been avoided, as they were the means to reach out for something new and more fulfilling. The essence of your journey is that you reach wisdom through experience. Therefore, please recognize and honor the courage of this angel child that you were. See its vitality, courage, and perseverance in venturing into the unknown, and then feel your own innocence, even in your darkest side. I ask you to respect yourself, including the dark side of you. Just feel the power and self-consciousness of the Atlantean energy for a moment. there is a positive side to it as well. You are gifted in many ways. Invite that energy in, here and now. Allow the sense of self-esteem and self-command to return to you, and forgive yourself for the atrocities that took place in the past. Yes, you have inflicted pain on others, you were the aggressor there, but feel also how you have come to regret this deeply, and how much you have opened up now to genuine respect for all that lives. When you forgive yourself, you open up to the joy of letting go of judgment. That is the consequence, you see. If you recognize the dark part of you and are able to forgive yourself for it, you need not judge either yourself or others anymore. This is such a delight for your soul. So often you still put yourself on the rack of your judgments. You tell yourself there is so much you have to accomplish yet. Today, I ask you to look back and see what you have accomplished already. Be aware of the profundity of your journey throughout these great cycles of time. And do not look up to me as a master anymore. I have fulfilled that role 2,000 years ago, but that time is over. You are the Christs of this new era. You will bring peace in a world of duality and polarity, by radiating the peace that lies within your own hearts. Feel how you are ready for this role, and let me simply offer you some support and encouragement as your friend and brother. We are one.